Now we are going to start a press conference by Prime Minister Ishiba. We'll have opening remarks from the Prime Minister. The floor is yours.
I was assigned as the 102nd Prime Minister of Japan. My name is Shigeru Ishiba. Today, I launched the coalition government between the LDP and the Komeito party. First, I'd like to talk about the victims of the Noto Peninsula earthquake as the victims and who are affected by the disasters of the heavy rains in Noto and Peninsula. I'd like to express my condolences to those people as well as express my sympathy. And at this moment, there are many people fulfilling their duties for the relief activities of the victims. For a long time, I have served as a politician. And there was one important thing for me as a politician. For people in Japan, then getting sympathy and understanding from them is what counted most for me as a politician. I always send a message to people in Japan, courage and sympathy. I'd like to talk about the truth. I believe that is what a politician has to do. And that is my belief maintained for 40 years. We have to be modest, sincere. I'd like to give warmth to people in Japan. The basic policy under the current cabinet is the protection. I'd like to protect 5 things in my administration. First, the politics should be to follow the rules. I have to create the politics to follow the rules. We have to believe in the people in Japan. Then the cabinet should be trusted by the people in Japan. We believe in the people in Japan. I'd like to talk about truth with the courage and sincerity. For us to be trusted by the people in Japan, there are important assignments. That is a political reform. We have to gain the trust, people's trust in the politics. We have to carry out consistent political reform. That is what we have to do. When politics requires money, then to people in Japan, there has to be a careful explanation by the government to the people in Japan. It is a matter of course. As long as we collect money with modesty, then we have to open the sources of the money in a very high transparent way. The other way, and we enacted the Political Fund Control Act. There will be a specific discussion to establish the specific third-party organization. We have to reform the political fund rules. We have to establish a system where the rules are respected and observed. About 30 years ago, and right after I became a DAD member, there were political distrust cases triggered by the recruit scandals. I was a young politician, but I put my energy to carry out political reform. It's been more than 30 years since then. Then this time, I was elected as the LDP president. Then I'm poised to carry out political reforms from the Reiwa era. Protecting Japan is the second important thing. National security environment surrounding Japan is the most severe in the post-war period. That's my recognition. Based on national security strategy, we have to enhance the deterrent to protect the peace, and drastic and reform of Japan's defense capability is what I'm going to do. Based on the realistic diplomatic activities, based on Japan-US alliance, like-minded countries and our partners, the framework should be expanded. We use diplomatic powers and defense powers to realize the stability of Japan and the world. Free and open Indo-Pacific is an important vision for us. Under that, we pay respect to the rule of law, and we'd like to enhance the security of the region and its safety. The initiatives will be enhanced. Government is going to carry out drastic reform of defense capabilities, but for us to make it happen, I don't mean not only equipment, defense equipment, but right now we have a shortage of SDF members. We have to improve the compensation and working environment of SDF members. Then we have to establish the the lifelong plan for STF members. On this matter, related the cabinet minister conference will be launched, headed by myself. Then we have to come up with specific plans, enhancing defense capability, response capabilities, and deterrence capabilities. And together with that, I will strive to reduce the base burden in Okinawa, then that enhance the economic security and cyber security at the same time. Abduction issue is one of the most important matters for my government. And then we will try to bring back all the Japanese nationals abducted by North Korea to Japan. Then I'm going to do it with strong determination. Giving security to Japanese nationals living abroad is another important thing.
Japan's economy, whether or not we can overcome the deflation, we are at a reflective point. Wage hike and investment, we need to realize a growth type economy, and under Kishida administration, the growth strategy has been taken, and I'm going to take over that. And economy comes before fiscal operation and policies, and we need to first of all overcome deflation. The first step is to support the people who are suffering from inflations, and we are going to consider economic policies and transition from a cost-cut type of economy to a value-added type of growth economy. We are going to realize a Japan that is centered, that is investment-oriented, and new services need to be created, automobiles and others. The exporting companies need to make profits, and also the productivity needs to be enhanced. We are going to make investments for that. The Kishida administration, the investment-oriented country, this policy will be carried over. 54% of GDP, if I remember correctly, the individual consumption accounts for 54%. And this is the key for economy. And therefore, a sustainable actual wage hike, as well as removing the concerns for the future, need to be in place. And also we need to protect the assets of the people in order to protect the livelihood of the people in our economic policy. For the low-income households, subsidies and also emergency subsidies or support for inflation will be in place. And for a maximum productivity enhancement and the price transfer measures will also take place. The minimum salary will be raised to 1,500 yen before 2030. And in order to remove concern for the future, the social securities and also medical services, we need to review if they are in accordance with our time. And in order to remove the concern of people, we are going to tap in that too. The wages need to go up, and also the capex needs to be expended to also increase the wages. Good circulation needs to be created, not only for a few number of companies, but also for the SMEs. The benefits need to spread. In recent years, Japan has suffered from many natural disasters, typhoons, and also the linear ring band. Every year, we suffer from natural disasters, and Japan is one of the countries in the world that is prone to natural disasters in the world. People are worried, and in order to face with the people squarely, I'm aiming to establish a disaster management agency. The Noto Peninsula earthquake hit us this year, and the reconstruction and the recovery need to be implemented. The Great East Japan earthquake, the reconstruction for that, we are also going all in for that.
Fourth assignment is to protect the regional economy. The regional economy of Japan are the engines of growth for my country. Japan, the the fisheries industry, then agriculture industry, and then forestry industry, then we have very good conditions. For us to develop those three industries, then Japan is given very good conditions indeed. That's my recognition about Japan. Tourism and service industry are included, and then those industries and regional revitalization, the trigger of Japanese then economy. Then I was the first minister in charge of that. Then I'm from the Tottori Prefecture, where population is declining. Then I'd like to deal with this assignment with very strong resolve. I sent a message when I was regional revitalization minister. Then I said that the industry and government and institutions and colleges and senior high school, junior high schools, and then financial institutions and the workers or laborers, then regional, the media. Governments are not only entities to carry out regional revitalization, but in regions we have various stakeholders existing, and they use their wisdom, rack their brain. Then, depending on each feature that each region should develop, and this is the important thing. The government is going to stand behind that effort. For us to have a new regional economy, we have established and then we are going to have a new regional economy, then living environment, and the creation headquarters. We put the minister. Then this is called Regional Revitalization 2.0. Then the next thing is that we have to protect opportunities for young people as well as women. Young people and women, and for their happiness as their human rights, should be protected in our society. All the people should be given the best education in our society. Such a society should be established. For us to make it happen, I'd like to strain my effort and make my effort in the regional reform. The women's rights should be protected in all sectors of the society, all decision-making processes. The female participation that should be a target for both the government and private sector. Many women should be engaged in social activities, and for us to make it happen, what should I do? I'd like to lead a national discussion, then I'd like to work on the reform of the systems. For a long time, I made preparations to date. And at this moment, as a politician making the preparations after preparations, then I'd like to use all the capacities, energies to each one of the people in Japan. I'd like to fulfill my responsibility. I have been given such opportunity. 5 protections were mentioned by myself to make future, then to protect the future of us. And I'm ready to give everything I have to make it happen. It's been 38 years since I selected as a DAT member. I visited very many regions present in the world. I listened to the voices of various people in the world. A requirement for politician is that, once again, the politicians should face up to each one of the people in Japan. That is my belief. I'd like to have a dialogue with the people in Japan. Then all the people can enjoy the security and safety in our society. I'd like to make, and we have to make Japan to such a country. All the people can enjoy safety and security, and so that all the people can gain smiles on their face. And that is the Japan then I'd like to see. My cabinet is based on the satisfaction and the sympathy. Politics for the sake of people in Japan, and above all, then I like to get understanding and sympathy from the people in Japan to my government. I'd like to go straight forward in the politics with sympathy and understanding. Let me talk about political schedule going forward. On October the 9th, there will be the dissolution of the lower house, and then the general election will be announced on October the 15th, and the election will be put to a vote on 27th. The time in this period is very short, then I'm afraid that I have to put the burden on the stakeholders, but I'd like to ask for your understanding to carry a political schedule. I'd like to ask for the understanding and cooperation from the people in Japan. Thank you.
Now we will open the floor for questions. When you are appointed, please go to your nearest microphone and please state your name and affiliation. Please keep your question to one. We have other schedules later, so please thank you for your support and cooperation. We will start with the main media reporters. TV Asahi, please. TJ Iwa with TV Asahi. Congratulations on assuming the Prime Minister. Let me ask a question about the dissolution of the lower house. So during the election of the LDP president, you said that the dissolution shouldn't be depend on the situations of LDP and there should be discussion with the opposition party. But as you said that it is a very short period to go before the election, why did you make that decision? And some candidates also said such opinions. You've been saying very good things, but as soon as you became the Prime Minister, some people say that you have changed. How do you respond to that kind of opinion? And also, what is the cause for the dissolution? The new cabinet is launched based on the Article 69 of the Constitution. When the confident motion or non-confidence motion of the cabinet is passed, if there is no dissolution, then the cabinet will resign en masse. And we didn't have a passage of the non-confidence motion or confidence motion, but we launched a new cabinet. So about this new cabinet, we need to ask the mandate of the people based on the intent of the Constitution. And during the election, we held discussions, and we also have to provide the materials for people to make a decision for their vote. That's what I said during the election. And we are going to have the diet session. There will be party leaders' discussions and the questions by the parties at the diet session, and there will also be committees discussions taking place. I'm not aware of all the details, but I will answer to the questions by the parties. And also during the policy speech, I want to deliver my thoughts in my own words, and I will answer the questions sincerely. At the plenary sessions at the upper house and the lower houses, there will be opportunities for me to answer the questions. And those are not sufficient, but I would like to do my best so that I can deliver my words to the people. And I think we should ask the mandate of the people. And we also have to provide the materials for the people to make a decision. And that's what I'm doing my best to do so. And the cause is exactly what I just stated. We just launched a new cabinet. So we have to ask the people and to decide what is a cabinet. Do the people trust in our cabinet? And is there any other options? And that's the question that we are asking of the people, and that is the cause for this dissolution.
I'd like to have a question from Mr. Ishiba on Asahi newspaper, another coordinator. This is Ishiba from Asahi Shimbun. And just now, you said the cabinet and with the sympathy and understanding. But I'd like to ask a question about the such fund cases in which people in Japan do not feel happy, and the necessity about the bringing down the flash funds matters. But you mentioned the responsibility, but on specific investigation, then you have avoided talking about that. then please let us know if the government is going to carry out another examination to review the facts about the cases. Without revealing those cases, and next lower house election, then do you believe that the voters in Japan can show understanding to the selection of the Diet members who gained the nomination from the LDP during the election? I sent a message in the election campaign. When new facts then come to surface, I think we have to carry out investigation on those matters. That is what we are standing right now. But I don't think that is what we are standing right now. If need be, then investigation will be carried out, but that is not where we are right now. Having said that, as you have pointed out, even though I said this, but people in Japan we are not in a situation that people in Japan are feeling happy about that. And I don't think they have given us the assessment. But on that matter, when we discover new facts, we have to get down to those facts. But in case those facts do not come up, but people don't show sympathy, but this is a matter of each Diet member, then some people are wondering what has happened to the FDP. And we believe, and I believe there is a distrust among people. That's my observation going around best space in Japan. The reality, the slush funds are reported in the political fund reporting, reports, then who and sources and destination of the money are revealed. But not only that, and for people in Japan to be happy about the investigation, for us to prevent similar cases from taking place again, I'm the LDP president. I'd like to give explanation. And about the parties, the LDP's recognition of the candidates in election districts, how much support candidate gains. Then we'd like to make a judgment whether LDP is going to give party authorization to those candidates. And if need be, then I'm not saying that candidates should give explanations, but I am the leader of the LDP and giving authorization to candidates, and I'm supposed to give explanation to the people in Japan so that the people can understand what we are going to do.
いたしますので
Now we will take questions from other media outlets. Akiyama-san with Nikkei newspaper, please. Congratulations, Prime Minister. I have a question on the economy. On September the 30th, the Nikkei average was dropped by 1,910. And today it went back by 732. The stock market is fluctuating. And one of the reasons is because the Ishiba administration's economic policy is uncertain, according to some people. The former Prime Minister Kishida has started to move towards the normalization of the financial monetary policy, and he said that he has faith in the policies of the governor of BOJ. And for Prime Minister Ishiba, do you also trust in the policies of the governor of BOJ, or do you think that raising the interest rate now is too early? Could you share your thoughts? On the trend of the stock prices, the government should refrain from commenting. On the stock market, the government needs to make a calm judgment. And on monetary policy and its specifics, the government should not comment on it either and intervene. But based on the communication with the Bank of Japan, the government delegates the policies specifically to the Bank of Japan. As I stated in the beginning, the new cabinet will succeed the policies, the monetary policies of the previous administration. We will overcome the deflation, and we will also carry over the policies to establish Japan as a country that is a pro-investment. And we are also going to promote investment on the interest rate policy. We're also not in a position to comment, but in order to break away from deflation, we continue to have expectation and the stance of the Bank of Japan, and we will continue to have close cooperation, and the fundamentals of the market need to be maintained, and that is what we are monitoring. And on the I'm not going to comment on the interest rate, but we would like to monitor carefully and to create a flow from saving to investment. And we will agree to do more efforts to that, and we will not comment on interest rate or on credit easing.
武田 from Shizuoka Shimbun. Can I ask a question about the linear Chuo Shinkansen in June, and former Prime Minister Kishida to JR East, and by 2037 then linear Chuo line then should be established, and this was mentioned in the economic and fiscal reform policy, but due to that financial support is spent on the linear Chuo Shinkansen, then, and you may understand you mentioned that the budget should be used and linear Chuo Shinkansen services. I wonder if you're going to succeed to former Prime Minister Kishida's policy on linear Chuo Shinkansen, or do you have different view on that? The policy is carried out. The Kishida administration then should be succeeded by myself. Early start of the Shizuoka Airport is one of them, as an early start of the linear Chuo Shinkansen service, and we'd like to create a prepared environment to make it happen. As you said, by having linear Chuo Shinkansen, not only the regions where the services are provided, but all across Japan, I believe that benefit should be enjoyed all parts of Japan. And then it is not automatic benefit of linear railway, but I believe that establishment, the start of the linear Chuo Shinkansen service, and will have to give a benefit to all across Japan. And going forward, I'd like to consider the point by having the linear service, and first to create new economic benefits. For example, in Tokaido Shinkansen had extra transportation capacities by the linear, then we have to think about how we can take advantage of the extra capacities of Chuo Shinkansen. The benefit then shouldn't be limited to the regions, but economic benefit, and then should be considered so that we can carry out early start of the linear Chuo Shinkansen.
Sejima with Fuji TV on diplomacy. Kishida administration, through leader diplomacy with the U.S. and South Korea, enhanced the bilateral relationships. And what about your diplomacy? What is your style of the leader diplomacy? And with the new president, the upcoming new president of the U.S., what kind of relationship are you going to build? And also about the revision of the status of forces agreement. There is some voices being cautious about that. And what kind of discussions are you going to hold about that? On bilateral relationships with the United States, the bilateral relations is extremely critical. It's also the case with South Korea, with Australia, with the ASEAN nations. And as I listen to the conversations, I also believe that the relationship with the United States is very important. I think the US is important, South Korea is also important. But when we engage in leader diplomacy, we need to make it clear what the purpose of the meeting is. To enhance trust and to deepen friendship is important. But what is the purpose behind a conference needs to be set in advance. The natural interest differs from country to country. Based on each nation's national interest, serious discussions need to take place and what kind of outcomes we want to reap from. I've been engaged in defense for a long time and had a lot of discussions on that with leaders of many countries. And I think it is very important to make it clear the objective of each meeting. And the US is going to have a presidential election soon, and next year a new administration will be launched. And we're not in a position to comment on other countries' diplomacy, but in kind of a form, we shouldn't make any predictions, but we need to create a situation that we can have communications with each party. And that is what we are working on right now. You asked me, maybe the US is concerned about the revision of the Status Forces Agreement. And I've been thinking about this question for more than 20 years. When we do this, maybe there will be a concern in the bilateral relationship between Japan and the US, but I don't believe so. Revising the SOFA agreement is going to further bolster the bilateral relationship. In order to revise the agreement, the methodology, for example, to establish a training base for the SDF in the United States is one of the options. And the ground SDF, the air SDF, because we do not have enough space in Japan, we do not have an environment to conduct sufficient training. So we need to create such an environment, develop that, and in order to bolster the bilateral relationship, to establish a training base in the United States is something that I think is effective. That's what I've been thinking since a long time ago. And for that, a status forces agreement is necessary. It has to be considered logically and diplomatically, and also from the point of view of enhancing the national security. These points need to be thought through, and we need to have deep discussions on that as necessary within the parties.
Yoshida and Hokkaido Shimbun. Just now, then you mentioned that can ask a question. Successor to that members and who didn't report the political funds in the political fund reports. Time is quite limited before the general election. But you mentioned the responsibility for explanation as the president. But time is quite limited. But the investigation hearing to the diet members as well as representatives of prefectural branches of the DP, I wonder if that's possible. As was mentioned in the first question, then I wasn't able to understand what you said. To the people in Japan, to Prime Minister and Ishiba, is the politician to say very straightforward, even though there is criticism on the dissolution of the lower house. And what you said is different. Many people believe, and from what you said, then after the election campaign is completed, I understand the time given to us is very limited. That's my understanding. So therefore, to those diet members, and how they review the information about the sources and destinations of the money, and they didn't use that money and for the purposes other than political purposes, and how we can prevent similar cases from taking place. And I'm going to listen to what they have to say on that matter. Then, so I'd like to ask them to present that information on those questions. Time available is quite limited, but I'm the LDP the president, so I'm the head to give authorization to those candidates. Then I'm under the obligation to give explanation about ideas, thoughts of those candidates supported and recommended by the LDP.
すみません。法律の、右から差しそのドワンコの七尾さんお願いします。
総理就任おめでとう。
Congratulations, Mr. Prime Minister. My name is Nanao with Nico Nico. During the LDP presidential election, you were a candidate, and after you become the Prime Minister, you have a different position, and I'm fully aware of that, which happened in the past as well. But for the people, one of the most important things is the timing for the dissolution of the lower house and also the general election. And the people are confused, which is a fact, because the Ishiba administration for Japan and for the people, what kind of government it is not clear at this point in time. Abe and Kishida and Kishida administration, each media outlet and press club and intranet party leader discussions, the discussions with the opposition parties used to take place in the past administrations. Are you going to attend those discussions? If not, what is the reason? The specific date and what time? If I was informed about the specific time, I'd like to respond to that as much as possible. And I'm fully aware of the influence of online media. And your question was a sudden one for me, and we have a very tight schedule for the election. And before I become the president and the prime minister, I tried to receive interviews as much as possible. I will never escape. Whenever circumstances allow, I will receive as much as possible.
This is Okada from Kyoto Shimbun. Can I ask a question about regional revitalization? Just now, Prime Minister said you mentioned the headquarters for the creation of new regional economy and living environment, and you're going to assign a minister in charge of that. But what you said is not crystal clear. Would you be more specific about the initiatives that you have in mind? The Abe administration, it's been 10 years since the initiative was started by Abe administration. Then the concentration of Tokyo and the lower birth rate and regions in Japan have been suffering. And I'd like you to talk more straightforward on that matter. Regional relocation of ministries to other parts of Japan than was mentioned. Would you please let us know how this is going to happen, including your schedule? About 10 years ago, I was the first minister in charge of regional revitalization. Then I sent a message back at time. This is not to be done only by ministers, and there are 5 factors I mentioned, including the government and private sector and the universities. And there are various industrial sectors, the government sectors, and the municipalities, local governments, and not only universities, but high school and junior high schools are included. Financial institutions are quite important. Workers and laborers and trade unions, the media people, all the people should stay together to think about how they can improve the region that they belong to. There should be an optimal conference or meeting. Grants to the regions first 100 billion. But when I served as the first minister, then I thought that the money was good enough and large enough. In this town, in this city, there should be a best way of support. The government, central government, should give as much support as possible. There has to be integration between central and local governments. Once again, we have to go back to square one. They like to renew what we have done, the initiatives of government. And you from Kyoto, you know very well the regional education ministries, then Kyoto Prefecture and the city and universities, colleges and private sectors. There are plenty of different stakeholders. And then why the cultural agency should be relocated to Kyoto city? And there has to be very active. There was very active discussion. I don't believe the people in the ministry were quite happy to go to Kyoto. Then I was regional revitalization minister. Mr. Hase was education minister. He is the Ishiba Prefecture governor. The ministry people were not very happy, but when a ministry is relocated to some few place and will be the best for Japan, I'd like to have a discussion on that. There is a concentration of all ministries, agencies in Japan. I believe Japan is the only country having such a system in the world. We have to change it. Japan doesn't request for the sake of ministries, government agencies, then that's a kind of strong mindset I have to carry out regional revitalization.
2列目の一番向こうの TBS の中島さんどうぞ。
はい。
Nakajima with the TBS. My question is about the status forces agreement between Japan and the U.S. and the national security system between the two countries. The Japan provide the space and the basis, and you also said the necessity of having training bases in the U.S. And does that mean that Japan will have the obligation to safeguard the U.S.? That's a totally different question. And the Japan-U.S. security system is that the U.S. is obliged to protect Japan, and Japan is obliged to provide the bases to the U.S. So what we provide is very different, and this is the only kind of alliance in the world. It's asymmetrical. And the SDF cannot conduct sufficient training. That's what I'm saying. And if we can have an option to have the bases in the U.S., that's what we want to have. It doesn't mean that will change the obligation. Even if that's the case, it doesn't mean that Japan will be obliged to protect or to defend the U.S. I think this is, you might be referring to collective defense, but this is a different question. I'm only talking about to have more efficient and effective training and to further enhance the alliance between the two countries. And that will necessitate a revision of the SOFA, and that will not change the obligations of the two countries.
This is Kaya from Yomiuri. During the LDP election campaign, I'd like to ask you about the commitments and your the statements. On the Japan, the U.S. SOFA, in a speech in Okinawa Prefecture, you clearly mentioned that the SOFA should be revised. And on Asian NATO, in the interview you made newspaper, you said that creation then should be carried out and as soon as possible. You have to, I think both of them, they have to start discussing if you're going to make them happen. But there wasn't any instruction from you to related ministers. But I'm going to put hold on those matters, and do you believe the time is not ripe for the realization of those matters? You decided not to have a budget committee before the dissolution of the lower house, but within and outside the party and the LDP, then you didn't. That your remarks were not observed. You said that protection and then delivering the goods is what they're going to do during election campaign. But after I became the LDP president, then you have to have some reviews on your remarks. Japan was so far, and Asia and the collective security agreement. For a long time indeed, I myself, I have been proposing those matters for a long time indeed. Perhaps it's been more than 20 years, I believe. Then I suggested the matter in the LDP's National Security Council. I don't believe that I can realize those matters as soon as I became the Prime Minister of Japan, but within my party and within the LDP, there are many people sharing the same views that I have. I didn't give specific instructions to other ministers, but there are politicians and LDP members sharing that sense, and those frameworks will be conducive to the safety of this region. And how about the treaties and the interpretation of the Constitution? Then those people have the accurate understanding, knowledge about those matters, and actually give acceleration to the discussions by those people. I think it's been over the Japan-US so far since the agreement was made for a number of years, and discussion has existed. I don't think we can turn out the situation right on the spot, but I don't think it is right for us to give it up. So therefore, I'd like to then proceed on the path to make it happen. You said that there is a contradiction between what I'm saying right now, what I said during the election campaign. This is what you said. Then providing materials, information for the understanding of people is quite important. As soon as possible, I think we should try to get confidence from the people in Japan. Then I mentioned two things. And I said something specific, but in my promises to the people, then how seriously, sincerely we give explanation to the people in Japan to give information and gaining the satisfaction, understand the people. Well, I'm going to provide it. I'm going to provide the materials so that people can make a judgment after the lower house is dissolved. There will be different discussions online and other places. Then before the voting date, and before voters then make decisions on the candidates that select, and we are going to provide necessary information materials, and so that people in Japan, the voters, can make a judgment on the candidates that they support.
ますので、そろそろお時間とさせていただきたいと思います。今挙手
For those who are raising hands, we are going to receive your questions in a written form, and we will answer later because we are pressing for the next schedule. Please send us your question, and please limit your question to one because we have a cabinet meeting later. So please email us your questions. Thank you very much for your understanding and cooperation. This concludes the press conference.